What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined again by my dad, Sean, and today, reactions to the classics. We are coming to the end of our Doors run with LA Woman. You can check out our reviews of every other Doors album we've done in the description. We'll have a link there below. And I had never heard any of these tracks before.
No, I had not either.
So I was curious to dive into this. A lot of y'all have been telling us how good the record is, and it was pretty darn good. If this is your first time stopping by the channel, we appreciate it. Here at Reactions to the Classics, we take a look back at some of the most classic albums of all time, do a detailed track-by-track reviews, and just like today, it's usually the first time we've heard the record. So that sounds like something interesting to you. Be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, and if you'd like to link up with us further, we have a Facebook group as well as a Patreon page where you can support us and get some exclusive content, and you can check that out in the description. But let's just get into the quick facts.
Yeah, Trey, this was their sixth and final studio album with Jim Morrison at lead vocals. He died just 3 months after this was released. It was released in April of 1971. Went to number 9 in the US, number 28 in the UK. Much more heavily blues oriented than their last few albums. It's number 364 in the Rolling Stones top 500 albums of all time. Now, we had a big change on this final album. Paul A. Rothchild, the longtime producer, what happened?
Yeah, they ended up splitting from him. If you remember from some of the previous records, he kind of had a bit of a perfectionist personality, would do multiple takes, drive the Doors a little bit crazy at points, and here, whenever he heard Love Her Madly, he thought that it was cocktail music.
Yeah.
He thought they were starting to take a step back artistically, and that was kind of the straw that, you know, broke the camel's back, and they ended up splitting from him and producing it themselves along with a longtime engineer,
Bruce Botnick. Later on, Rothchild says, I was just trying to push them to get better. Who knows, but they did say later on, Manzarek said, it was such an enjoyable album because it was like the warden had left the prison. So I think Rothchild deserves some credit, though, because with all of Jim's issues with substance abuse and everything, you kind of needed a guy in there that was outside of the band.
Yeah, to get some order a little bit.
Yeah, to hammer him along. So I don't want to sell out Paul totally here. The songs were completed in just a few takes. It only took them 6 days, which was quite rare for the Doors. They actually moved out of the recording studio once Rothchild left. They moved to their private Doors space, and they didn't have a vocal booth, so Jim had to sing in the doorway of the bathroom to get the proper acoustics. One of the interesting things is they actually went in the studio without much material originally, so they kind of jammed to some stuff and just threw some stuff together on the spot.
Yeah, and lyrically we have it's talking about love, lost love, LA, obviously the title of the record, and you have a song, of course, called LA Woman. That's a big theme, as well as just kind of it's a bit melancholic, a bit introspective at certain points, at a level that we hadn't really seen the Doors get to up to this point.
So let's kick this thing off with the Changeling. The Doors actually wanted this to be their first single. It was taken from a notebook of Morrison in 1968, some stuff he had written out. It actually seems to anticipate his leaving LA with I'm leaving on the midnight train. Little James Brownish sound here. I thought it was kind of a throwback, a very good opener.
Yeah, hard rocking blues. I thought it was, as you mentioned, just to set the tone well. Great guitar work by Krieger in here, and just the right amount of organ to not be overpowering. And Morrison had those harsh vocals. That's kind of my favorite type of a song that Morrison does, is whenever he gets those howls going in, and it just kind of set off the themes of that almost gritty, ominous vibe that this record sometimes sets out. And then we go into a lighter tune with Love Her Madly. This actually wasn't written by Morrison. It was by Krieger.
It's by Krieger, and he wrote it when he was waiting around for Morrison was in court, one of his various arrests. And it was their first single, became one of their highest charting hits, hit number 11 in the US. It's about his relationship, Krieger's relationship with his wife. They had a very difficult relationship, a bunch of her leaving, coming back, all of those good things. And you know, when Morrison writes lyrics, you read those and you kind of got to digest them because they're pretty deep and you kind of got to see where he's going. When Krieger writes, it's very obvious what he's writing about. And that's not a knock on him. That's nice too, because I don't have to try to decide.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So I thought it was a good vocal performance overall, really good song.
Yeah, it seemed like the vocal had an effect to it. Just a cool aura about the song. A great mix of blues and psychedelic music that the Doors are able to blend these different genres together and make that unique sound that still makes them sound unique all all this time later. So this was one of my favorites on the record.
That takes us to Been Down So Long. The lyrics hit on depression, liberation, sexuality. Kind of a standard blues track here. Vocal is good, instrumentation is good. I really like this song.
Yeah, and they actually took the part of it from 1966 novel from Richard Farina, Been Down So Long. It's starting to look like Up to Me, and you can just hear the desperation in Morrison's voice here. Again, a very passionate vocal, kind of one of those pressing type of tunes in here. He's just noting how down on his luck that he is. He wants somebody to help him out, but you can kind of tell that he doesn't believe that that's really going to help him at the end of the day. So I enjoyed that, especially more than track number 4. Cars Hiss by My Window. This was composed in the studio, and Manzarek recalled that Jim said it was about living in Venice Beach in a hot room with a hot girlfriend, an open window, and a bad time. He knows it could have been about Pamela. For me, this was just a little bit lifeless, not only musically, just slower, drawn out, and then vocally devoid of energy. I wasn't a huge fan.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. It's traditional blues numbers, nothing that stands. I think I probably liked it a little bit more than you. One of the interesting things, so you got to listen to this song now that I'm telling you this, because I found it, I could hear it once I knew this, but the ending, there's not a harmonica and guitar to end it out, even though it sounds
that was a highlight. Yeah,
it's Morrison imitating a harmonica and guitar. I could hear it once I knew it and listened to it closely, but on first listen, when I didn't know it, you could not pick it up. So kind of a neat little thing they threw in there, and that's going to bring us final track on side A, title track, LA Woman. It's over 7 minutes long. It is quite the journey.
Oh, absolutely. And here we get towards the middle end. He starts going in a bridge talking about Mr. Mojo Rising.
The anagram for Jim Morrison, baby.
And a little aside, I already knew about the anagram. I hadn't heard of this song, but I used that name for my fantasy football team this year.
He did use it for that.
I got 3rd out of 12, so I still got some money. So
you got some mojo out of it.
You know what? We'll keep that rocking in the years to come. But I enjoyed this. Definitely hits on that LA theme here, obviously. Notes just kind of the nightlife, the grittiness of the urban area. We got a line in there. Are you a lucky little lady in the city of lights, or just another lost angel? Kind of had me on the edge of my seat, just instrumentally. I thought they were firing on all cylinders.
I did too. I think it also showed Jim's love of Los Angeles and also his disdain.
The duality.
The duality of I've got to leave, but there's parts of this that I really love. So what a tremendous way to finish out side A. We're going to start the B side with L'America, which is short for Latin America, but also some Los Angeles stuff in there. I know you like this song because you told me right before we started shooting this. This is not a fave of mine at all, so I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, well, we have that kind of spooky, ominous vibe that we've usually get one time out of each Doors record, so I appreciated it for that. And then we had a great tempo shift in that second verse here, and we just had some of that cheeky little humor from Morrison. We have the line, change the weather, change your luck, and then he'll teach you how to find yourself. You think he's going to say something else in there. It was kind of funny to me. I liked it. Just set again that kind of industrial type of tone for LA.
Now we'll move on to Hyacinth House. The music was written by Manzarek while Morrison wrote the lyrics. The use of the term hyacinth from Greek mythology. Great vocal performance here. This is one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song on here.
And here we have Jim at some of his most personal and introspective. A great use again by Manzarek. Just the right amount of organ in there. Didn't overpower the track. The music itself was a bit whimsical considering the at times depressive lyrical content.
Yeah, I thought that was the nice mixture of it and kind of how it worked for me. And that's going to take us into Crawling King Snake. It was arranged by John Lee Hooker, written by Anonymous, first performed in 1941. The Doors had performed this song way back in the day. I actually really like this song. I do. This song grew on me. For the first time I heard it, I thought, I don't like this. And the more I listened to it, I'm like, you know what? I do. I don't know why. There's nothing fantastic about it, obviously, lyrically or even musically. I just do. Sometimes you come across songs like that.
I respect it. For me, it was pretty forgettable. It would be in the bottom 2 tracks for me. Just kind of, again, drawn out blues. I guess because I know that they got so much more. It just wasn't very interesting, but that's the great thing about music.
Yeah, we are definitely on different sides on this album.
And then we go into the penultimate track, the WASP, in parentheses, Texas Texas Radio and the Big Beat. Morrison's spoken word lyric was a reworked poem from 1968 he had written entitled Texas Radio. He often recited it at concerts. We have a double track vocals on here, which gives the vocal a great effect. It's just something that the Doors didn't do too often on the double tracking, so it was kind of neat.
Yeah, it had a nice guitar riff. I thought it could have been about 1 minute shorter. It was about 4 minutes and 20 seconds, so I thought it got to be a little drug out on the instrumentation part. And that will take us to our final track, Riders on the Storm, the last track that Jim ever recorded, and it's so appropriate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, what are the odds that the final song on the final record he's at, and we start off with
so good.
The Rain, and this is one of their more famous tunes.
It is.
I hadn't heard it though, so.
And credited all four of them on the writing too.
Yeah, exactly. So I love how it started and ended with you hearing that rain.
Yeah, man.
It just had that street type of vibe to it, and it was just it was all in all just pretty badass, because you had Jim's regular vocal, but then he also whispered for a double vocal, and that was the last thing he ever did on a Doors record, was putting in that whispered vocal. So it gives that rocking vibe, yet also there's a hint of haunting nature to it.
That's what I was going to say, very haunting. Some people see it as an autobiographical account of Morrison's life. He considered himself a rider on the storm. The Killer on the Road's a reference to a screenplay he wrote called The Hitchhiker, an American Pastoral, where Morrison was going to play the part of a hitchhiker who went on a murder spree. This is my favorite song on this album. There's several songs I liked on here.
I'd say same here.
And I think this is the part where, before we get to our actual favorite tracks, we kind of gave them out a little bit there, but I'm going to get into just the quick theory of this album from start to finish is Jim's commentary on how he's unhappy and wants to end his life. Some people see it as a suicide note. In Hyacinth House, he talks about being lonely and needed a new friend. In Cars Hiss By My Window, he talks about loving someone who doesn't love him back. In The Wasp, he talks about being depressed and been down so long. He talks about feeling imprisoned and controlled. In America, he talks about using drugs to get away from his problems and trying to find himself. In Love Her Madly, he talks about being infatuated with someone who leaves him for someone else. In Crawling Kingsnake, he talks about being the ruler of his den, but he's now old and tired. And in The Changeling, he talks about feeling different in the world, so he decides to leave the town on a midnight train. And in L.A. Woman, he talks about leaving L.A. for good. And all the good times he'd had there are gone now. And we just talked about in Riders on the Storm, he talks about finally getting out and getting set free, leaving him a rider on the storm. I don't know, guys. I haven't dove deep into this. Some of you watching this, I know, are hardcore Doors fans. Maybe you have a theory on this. We don't even exactly know what happened to Jim in his last days. I don't think that's what this album is all about. I think this is a fantastic album, and I think it is so tragic as we've gone through this whole discography that this is the last one. But our favorite tracks, I already said Riders on the Storm for me, Hyacinth House, and Love Her Madly.
Yeah, I'm going to say Love Her Madly, Riders on the Storm, and L.A. Woman.
Yeah, and L.A. Woman.
La America for me as well.
LA Woman in there as well.
There's some great tunes, and then that's going to take us to our overall score. For me, I'm going to be at a very solid 8.5 on this record. What a way to go out! This and Morrison Hotel would be my favorite records from the Doors here, and just the way the themes just all work together. You had the signature sound, the poetic lyrics, themes of being an outcast, all things that make up the Doors music and that attracts people to them 50 years later. So a great record.
Yeah, I echo everything you said. I'm going to give it an 8.75. This and Morrison Hotel, also my favorites. We're going to do an album ranking of the Doors albums. We're also going to do the top 50 songs of the Doors, so be looking out for that. I had never really heard much from the Doors. I knew a couple of the hits, but they were before my time. And as we've gone through their discography, Trey, I have grown in my fandom to them, and man, I wish there was a follow-up to this, but what a way to go out.
Oh, absolutely. And if you enjoyed this review, please let us know your favorite tracks down below, and be sure to hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss out. We upload multiple times a week, have live streams, rankings, a bunch of fun stuff. I think you'll enjoy being part of our community here, and Dad, as always, appreciate the research.
Enjoyed the ride, man.
And until next time, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Happy listening, my friends, and we will see ya.